When you're born into a fire, let them burn it out. Sell them to the richest buyer. They wanna let the world decay. They tell us lies and fade away, fade away. We feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway. Listen up now, because we're never dropping out. Beat the odds, beat the big house. The brains are bigger than the doubt. We've been thinking for ourselves, never let the truth fade away. This is bigger than ourselves, we won't let the world burn away, burn away. We feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway. To play, haters face the world's mistakes. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway. And we feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway. To play, haters face the world's mistake. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway. What you think about when you're born into a fire? Let them burn it out. Sell them to the richest buyer. They wanna let the world decay. They tell us lies and fade away, fade away. We feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway. Listen up now, because we're never dropping out. Beat the odds, beat the big house. The brains are bigger than the doubt. We've been thinking for ourselves, never let the truth fade away. This is bigger than ourselves, we won't let the world burn away, burn away. We feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway. To play, haters
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Thursday night normal routine and making an impact. I am the foe, Cody Defoe. This is my fabulous co host, the natural Astrid Pizarro, here to talk some Impact Wrestling, as always, on a Thursday night. This one being a special episode, as this is the first week of Impact Wrestling's tapings that the wonderful natural beside me was live in attendance for. Astrid, you've now seen this show twice. Are you ready to talk about it now?
Sure. Don't die on me. You good? Maybe. There you go.
We got a very solid 2 hours of wrestling product here and a lot of entertaining pieces, a lot of important pieces, lots of action happening. Hello, Sir Ed, old Ed, my good friend, our good friend in the chat, just dropping in to say hi. Sad to hear you can't stick around, but hope things are going well for you. Let's jump right into it, Astro, because I'm sure there's lots to talk about with tonight's episode. Um, Kicking things off as we do with BTI, giving it the respect it deserves. Jonathan Gresham versus Aiden Prince. It this I felt was a pretty solid way to open the show. It was a follow up on Gresham's kind of squash match against Sheldon Jean from last week, but with a little bit more action to it. It felt like Aiden Prince really had a lot going for him, a lot of reversals. He was really just kind of realized where Gresham was targeting in his knee and had a lot of different ways that he kept trying to escape the target of the knee. Ultimately didn't quite work out for him, but I thought it was a really, really good showing for Prince and still really emphasized just how much of a technical mastermind Gresham is. How did you feel about it?
One thing that I really enjoyed about this is how cocky and confident Gresham was during this. He's like there was moments I forgot what he did exactly, what Aiden had done exactly, but Gresham kind of tricked him and just went like this to him and everything. Just and the way he was in control of the match because he had him in a leg submission at one point, and then Aiden grabbed him, and then Gresham let go, but he went back to it like right away. It was like only like a couple second break that he gave him, so that was interesting to see how confident he was through this whole match in itself. And I just felt like the only thing is like I feel like being me and knowing who Gresham is and the name that Gresham is and being like how he just came up with a Ring of Honor World Championship. I feel like I expected more from him coming into Impact, but they're really like slowly building him up with like having these matches with like Sheldon first and now Aiden. So I feel like they're like having like a slow burn kind of thing with Gresham so far.
I, I was surprised because I know when we talked about the match with Eddie when he first came back there at Hard to Kill, it felt like it should be something where he shouldn't be losing right away. The more I've kind of seen this play out and thought about it, it makes sense. This is a man who, yes, he was the top of the world. He was the ROH Pure Wrestling champion. He's a technical genius. He's built like a truck. He carries himself in every way that a champion should, but he's been out of the ring for months. He walked away from the reincarnated ROH and AEW months ago, took all this time off and he discussed it after this match in his promo too, that he took time to figure out where he wanted to be, where wanted to go, what he wanted to do next. And he tried to step right back into the ring against a former champion who's been at the top of his game for quite some time now. And so it does in hindsight make sense that he coming off the shelf would be a little bit rusty. He'd have to knock some of that rust off against Eddie. And now he comes in and he has the match against Sheldon Jean, where somebody who's so far down that totem pole that he walks all over him. And then an Aiden Prince, who's still quite a ways below him in terms of accomplishments and career, but maybe is a little bit higher up and has a little bit more going for him, puts in a little bit more effort. And you slowly build yourself up to these matches. But then we get to the promo of this and kind of the point of it. He's built himself up over a couple slow matches, and now he's jumping right into the fire, and he wants to go for somebody else who's at the top of their game, and he challenges Speedball Mike Bailey to a match at No Surrender. It's a match I want to see. It's going to be an absolute masterpiece of a wrestling match between these two men, but if you wanted to tell that story of Gresham getting back into it, it feels like this is him. He's got 2 matches under his belt, and now he's ready to challenge for a title again. Or so we'll see how it plays out. I don't know how you have either one of these men lose in that match at No Surrender. Assuming it's getting made. Obviously, we didn't get confirmation of it yet, but it would be weird for them to put the thought out there and then not make it happen. But I'm super, super stoked at the idea of it.
Yeah, another thing that I thought was interesting too was the finish of it, the match itself, because it's just Gresham putting Aiden's knee through the mat so many times, and he just tapped out. Like a lot of us stood out the moment, like, "Wait, it's over like that." So I thought it was interesting because you expect some kind of submission, being that it's Gresham. So being something like this, just him like slamming that knee so often, and then him tapping out the way he did, we're like, "That wow, that's a nice ending." And I love having him like address a little bit of the Ring of Honor thing. How he says like the true company closes doors. So like I took some time and now I'm here at Impact because of the people that are here. And I was like, yeah, and Jordan too, I was gonna say. But yeah, just like I love having him say like I want to challenge somebody that since he's signed, he's been like on a rocket launch here, and you see how how great he's been launching here in Impact. So to go against somebody like Speedball, when he said it, I looked at my dad like, oh my god, I need this match. And I wish I could have seen like right there and then. And it's like kind of weird for us being in the tapings because you're thinking we had 2 days. So basically we had the whole February taped, and I still had to wait a little bit longer than usual to get that match because I got to see this twice. But yeah, it looks like it's certainly happening. So that's exciting.
Yeah, no, that's going to be a fantastic one. And just Gresham in general being Gresham, the finish, as you talk about, I always appreciate when they go that way. Well, it happens so rarely where you have somebody tap out to just the physical violence as opposed to like a stretch or a limb manipulation or joint manipulation and stuff like that. And it reminded me, I think it was Carmella that had done this a while back when she was in a submission match where she'd have the hold, but she'd also be like throwing strikes at the same time as she had them in the hold to get them to actually submit to it. And it's a nice touch when they get there. And obviously Gresham almost reminds me a little bit of a Zack Sabre Jr. in the sense of all of the different ways that he can manipulate and destroy all of your body parts and focus on whatever he needs to focus on to chop you down to his size. And he doesn't have that one particular finishing move. He can finish you with any of his near 300 submissions. As Gia put it on commentary, she asked him if he had more or less than 300 submissions in his arsenal, and he had to think about it.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I love having Gia on a commentary too. I like when her music came, I was like, "Who is this?" And then she came out of like with her paper in hand. I was like, "Oh, she's doing the commentary." I was so happy to see her. And this is like I said, this like me watching it before at last week. So that was pretty like exciting to see her doing it again, like in a row like that so far.
Yeah, and I'll just give credit where credit's due. Last week, I was a little harsh on her that she seemed a little monotone and stale, and she had details, but she wasn't really engaged. I felt like in this match, it seemed like she'd kind of gained a little bit of confidence from that BTI match last week and just seemed a little bit more natural in the role now this week, and it felt like she belonged a little bit more. She still was a little bit reserved in terms of that emotion that I wanted to see her bringing, but it was growing. You can see as she's doing this, she's gaining little bits of confidence along the way that I don't know if it's a long-term thing at this point for her or if it's just something for the BTI to kind of fill that spot for Aiden / Matthew. Well, it's been a long time since that man's been Aiden English, but I still defaulted to it. But yeah, Ray Wolt obviously is getting those BTI matches off now, and he's more focused on the main show. So giving Gia that opportunity to just kind of grow her resume and grow her capabilities and her confidence, I'm really happy to see it. I think she is showing signs of improvement. I'm excited to see how she continues to grow along the way, because I thought the same thing about Matthew Ray Wolt when he first started doing commentary as well, that he was kind of dry and stale to start, and he had to grow to where he is now. That was it for BTI, and then we get into the main show, and we kick it off with a hell of an X Division tag team match. They didn't really focus on the fact that all four of these men were X Division competitors, but really they are Ace Austin, Chris Bay, aka Bullet Club Light, as I like to call them, versus Kushida and Kevin Knight in a first ever match in North America between two teams that were in the Best of Super Juniors Tag League in Japan this year. This match, I felt, could have main evented this show. This match could have main evented an Impact on any show. All four of these men just put in a fantastic effort. All of the moves looked clean. Everything was finesse. It was inevitable. It was time splitting. It was what all four of these men are, and it just looked fantastic. Astrid, do you feel the same?
Well, I wanted to shout out Bobby because I know he just finished a stream with Papa Smokes and then we're doing a watch along to Perry Pro Wrestling. So if you haven't checked it out, go back to the VOD at this point because the show's over. But go check it out if you haven't. Um, yeah, I definitely love this match. This is the first time that I watched Kevin. Like that was my introduction to him, so that was a great introduction in itself for me. I love having him and Kushida together. I love like not only the combination between the attires, but the way they work together so well. One of my favorite parts, though, when they had the opponents on their shoulders at the same time in front of each other, was like that was a fun spot to watch. And not only that, but Kevin did like a splash. I don't know if it was to Ace. Oh no, I think it was Baker's Bay started the match. That was really really nice. And that cut that Bay did on him on the apron, I was like, chef's kiss. Even though I was on the other side, so I couldn't watch it at first. But I feel like they had a lot of great chemistry, which I really enjoyed it, and like had that fast pace to it. And I already loved this Ace and Base. So it was nice to watch this live. Kushida, I had seen him mostly in NXT, but this is the first time I also watched him live. So that was interesting for me to watch in that aspect of it. But yeah, I feel like for an opener, I was like, I'm so excited for this match as it was. So I was like, I wanted the match to be longer than what it was.
Yeah, it felt too short. It felt like something that I would love to see a rematch of down the line. But yeah, as you say, the spot on the shoulders, once again, Kevin Knight impressed me with that standing drop kick, the shotgun drop kick to the guy on Kushida's shoulders. The fact that he can get that much air and drop kick a guy over 6 feet in the air. You had the other spot there when Ace and Kushida were on the outside, and Kevin Knight went to make the leap over the ropes down at them while Bay was sitting in the corner, and Bay caught him in that art of finesse on the apron. I did not.
Yeah.
I figured Bay was going to do something. I did not see an art of finesse coming, and my reaction in the moment was like, "Holy crap!" Like that was amazing, and
Yeah.
just the 1-2 suite. The way they do that move, it's as much as it feels awkward sometimes, just the way they have to set it up for Bay to get his foot in on Ace Austin's hands to set up the art of finesse out of the corner there. Despite that part of it, it's still always just the art of finesse into the fold for the 1-2-3. It just feels so smooth for like a hit of two finishing moves. Still separate moves, but done in such a way that it feels like a teamwork attack.
Yeah, and that's what I love about it more than anything. There was also a part that I think it was Kushida taking the referee over to the other corner while Kevin was holding on to Chris Bay in his corner too, and the referee just like falling for it. So that was like fun to watch too. So that's what I liked about it, like the pacing itself, like the match was fun to watch and witness. So it's like I wouldn't mind seeing this match happening again sometime soon later.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was Tom or Matt, but that point where they pulled the referee over to their corner, one of them made the comment about like Bullet Club shenanigans, and I'm like, I guess that's a little bit of Bullet Club. After I was calling them out last week for not having, not having really done much of that Bullet Club heel work. That they're too much of fan favorites right now to truly feel like Bullet Club. We got a backstage segment of the design with Callihan talking about how he was supposed to win the 6-shooter match last week, and he failed. And we have Khan saying that deserves like repercussions, or I told you there'd be punishment if he failed. Diener kind of stopping Khan because of the fact that they've put themselves in a 4-on-4 position for the match tonight. They're going to show mercy and give him another chance at redemption. Step 4 being that Callihan must win that match tonight.
Mm-hmm.
This was something that you would have seen for the first time tonight, I assume, setting up for the main event tonight. How do you feel about the whole way the design has gone up to this point?
I feel like it's, if you think about it, it's also that kind of like slow build to it, because having the 7 steps and everything with Callihan, like you're waiting for that moment of Callihan to turn on them, and it's gonna take that little bit of time before it happens. Yeah, this definitely explained a lot to me, because we were told about the main event, and I was like, this is kind of random, because like I said at that time, I hadn't watched the 6 shooter match yet. So I was like, okay, so that means either Swann or Callihan are one of the winners, but I wasn't sure. So like having this would definitely explain like the buildup of like the match, of like how the match came about. They were like, yeah, this is the main event. I was like, the design makes sense, and this one makes sense. But I was like, what about the rest of them? But it still was a fun like match to watch at the end. But yeah, it just like, I feel like I said, like little by little, the backstage parts are the one that fills in the pieces that I had left over, because we didn't get to watch it while we were at the tapings.
Yeah, the slow build is interesting. The whole idea of the 7 steps right now is kind of giving me vibes of the Labors of Jericho. Not quite the same, because it's not like the Labors were each a match, whereas this isn't so much matches, it's just different things he has to do to earn his place. But it's just the way it's separated into steps, and you have to go one by one through each step
Mm-hmm.
to achieve your goal. um Gives me a little bit of a reminder and a vibe of what that was last year in AEW. But to this point, I'm interested in where it's going. I still feel like it should end with Callihan versus Diener. And it's just a way to really kind of slow burn and build this feud up to a crescendo, which I'm okay with. It feels like everybody's playing their part well. Angels, Khan, Diener, Callihan, they make a good fit. Callihan with his head shaved now, but he's still holding on to that little piece of his own identity, with the jacket and the death machine and his thumbs up gimmick. And it's a nice touch to have this added in here in the build up to the match as to why he was allowed to keep trying to earn his spot despite failing his task last week.
Yeah, I just keep wondering when the Diener Callahan match does happen. I know eventually there'll probably be some kind of tag team, so Callahan and who else would join in against the design later on, because I feel like that's something that has to happen sometime later. So I'm still so curious if that happens, who will be his partners though. But I like less they'll build to it, having the steps, and like you said, not only the steps are not only just matches, but different opportunities that he's given. And it's also similar the way to what MJF is doing with Brian Danielson as well, of like having him go through all these people before he gets to him as the last stop. So it's always interesting to see like that build up there.
Yeah. Next up, we got a clip of something that you already know was coming, and this just kind of sets the table for the rest of us. The the wrestler formerly known as Persia Parada in NXT has a promo video just announcing that she is debuting next week in Impact Wrestling under her new name of Steph Delander.
Mm-hmm.
I will wait and see on this. I'm not a huge fan of her character in the past, but I'll wait and reserve judgment for when I actually see her make her debut. Did you have anything to add to that, since you already have seen her live and knew this was coming?
No, I definitely was curious how like it we'll talk about it a little bit later, but the build up towards the match that she has for next week is the one that I was curious about. So that definitely, and that got my question answered tonight as well. I feel like it was different seeing her there, because I'm so used to seeing Persia being like a comedy act, and Steph is more like that badass kind of person of like she would, she will go against it. She wasn't that kind of person to like that kind of heel to like back away from everything from what she's saying in her promo. That's what I enjoyed about it too. I'm hoping she is officially signed. I haven't seen anything yet about it. Once I saw her there, I was like, please, I hope she got signed, because it will bring something new to the table with her in there as well.
Yeah. Next match we got into was the Cannibal Savannah Evans versus the newly dubbed Black Widow, apparently, of Gisele Shaw. I'll get you to kind of give your thoughts on the match here, but first and foremost, How do you feel about Gisele being nicknamed as the Black Widow, given all of the other different Black Widows we've had in wrestling past?
It's like I get where she's coming from, especially with the promo at the end of like how she's giving her name. But at the same time, I'm just like, yeah, to me that's Tara, and there's nobody can replace Tara for me. So just like that's enough for me. When I heard her say it, I was like, no. But this also explains to me the part of like when this I was wondering when Savannah came by herself and there was no Tasha in there, especially after what happened last week and seeing her there. I was like, dang it, I want to see Tasha live. And then when I saw Savannah, I was hoping she would be with her somehow. And then I seen her there, like it made me think back of what happened last week too. I was like, so that's interesting. I don't like it, but sure. So it was kind of weird seeing Savannah by herself though.
Yeah, I felt like it was weird seeing her by herself, but she also just didn't feel like she looked good in this one. For being the cannibal and being as dominant as she's been in matches in the past and how she had been built up to be a dominant heater for Tasha for so long, coming into this match and seeing Gisele in control for a very large portion of the match, it
Mhm.
felt like. And Savannah had her moments where she got to kind of show off some of that power, came close at the end with the fisherman suplex, where I thought maybe, but ultimately taking the loss here after the interference by Jay Vidal. I mean, it protects her a little bit that it was an interference that caused the loss, but it still just didn't feel like the way you should present someone who you've been presenting as a monster. If anything, it should have been her kind of dominating Gisele for a lot more, and Gisele just kind of wily veteran maneuvering her way through things. I don't know. It felt off to me.
Yeah, I felt the same too. It's like not only I don't mind seeing her alone, but I feel like you kind of missed our star power that Tasha was bringing to the duo between them. Of like she's the one that people know more than anybody out of the two. But like you said, I kept thinking, is like, how do you give her the name the Cannibal and kind of make her seem like this powerhouse? But then we have somebody like Giselle who, like in a way, it's smaller than her, and then Giselle takes over Savannah. And that aspect of it is like I feel like it would have been good if we had like a good back and forth, and like maybe at the end with Jay's help, then Giselle will win. But I feel like we barely got anything from Savannah, and it was mostly Giselle. And to me, that part also didn't make sense seeing it. I was like, okay, I get it. They're trying to build her up like the Black Widow and try to give her that momentum, but I wouldn't have put Savannah in that position if anything. But I guess I was thinking like who else would have been in that position if it wasn't Savannah at the moment. So I figured, that's probably why. But yeah, it's like I also like the promo at the end of she's like finally like admitting it to herself that she is the Black Widow. And like I love she went by the list. She's like, oh, I'm taking credit. She took credit for Tasha leaving and for the influence being gone and for Chelsea being gone. And I like how she finally like she's like, yeah, that's me. So I'm gonna as well just apply it to myself at this point. So I like her like
Yeah,
seeing that like her accept that role finally.
yeah, I definitely liked that part in the promo at the end there of her kind of owning it and just saying, I'll take credit for it because ultimately they were just people who were here to steal the spotlight, and the spotlight is only for me. It's all mine.
Yeah.
The spotlight is for the quintessential diva, and if I have to get rid of anybody else who's going to steal my spotlight, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, and to Barry's comment, this was the first time I've seen Giselle got a big reaction from the crowd, booing her, which can only help her. Crowd usually indifferent. Yeah, I was kind of shocked at first when people were booing her, and I was like, "Oh, we're booing her now? Okay, sure." But I was like, I didn't boo her at all, but I was like, "That's interesting. I didn't expect that to happen." But one funny part about this, when her music started, my dad is the first time he watches Giselle live. So when he saw her by the rip, he saw was the light. He's like, "Who's this Christmas tree coming down?" And I couldn't help but laugh because all you could see is that like Jay's pants because they were white, I think, and then her outfit because of the lights, but not because of the outfit itself. So when he said that, I just like I had to laugh when I was trying to film the video. I was like, I couldn't do it. He's like, "Who's this Christmas tree coming down?" And I'm like, "Oh gosh, he's right."
That's excellent. We
Yeah.
need quotes from your dad for every single match. No, I feel like it's fair that this is the biggest reaction that she's gotten. Um,
Hmm.
I do think it's because we haven't got a ton of in-ring mic time for her either, though. And that's probably a big hindrance to the crowd reactions is that people haven't really got to you've seen a lot of the backstage stuff that happens, but those aren't shown to the live crowd. So to give her a live mic in front of that live crowd and let them dictate a reaction to her is a big step. And really, if you want her to be built as a true heel and get that true heel reaction, you have to be able to do that and let the crowd dictate that they don't like her in that sense.
Yeah, I kept thinking that of when I saw her doing the promo in the ring, because I kept thinking usually we have her doing backstage segments with the people who she was really going against at that moment, whether it was Tasha and Savannah or Chelsea and Diana, and with the influence too. So I feel like it was the first time I actually see her doing an in-ring promo. So I thought, it was like, maybe this makes a difference. So I definitely feel like it made a difference in the reaction from the crowd, and maybe it'll keep building up from there too.
Yeah. So after the Gisele match and the promo, we cut backstage where we had Kenny King coming in the building in time just to hear some people talking about Rich Swann, questions them on who they're talking about. When they tell him, he's like, what are you doing talking about him? You should be talking about me, the guy who just exposed Speedball Mike Bailey as a homicidal maniac. Steals their popcorn, continues walking, runs into Johnny Swinger and Zicky Dice, who are talking about something else. Somehow Dice managed to talk himself into a match for Johnny Swinger. Still not quite sure how that one worked either. And Swinger looks at him and like, what the hell? Dice is like, remember what you taught me? And Swinger's like, what? I don't know. I don't remember either. These two are pure comedic relief. I don't ever expect Dice or Swinger to win a match, but they're absolutely pure comedic relief and the funniest thing on the show week in and week out.
Yeah, this was another one for me, because seeing the match was like, why is Kenny going against him of all people? I was like, Kenny can do better than this. And then now seeing this, it made sense. And I kept thinking, it was like, I know the one on the right was Jack Price, because I kept thinking of Jack Pride when I see his name. But the one on the left, I wasn't sure if it was Aiden Prince, and I was like, some Prince and Price? Okay, that's definitely gonna help me later.
So Kenny tells them, I'm going to go to Santino and make this match happen right now. Next thing we know, we're backstage. Kenny's with Santino, who confirms that Kenny King versus Johnny Swinger is happening tonight. Steve Maclin comes in and says he deserves to be in the match with Josh Alexander and Rich Swann because Rich Swann's the number one contender. He beat Rich Swann last year, so therefore, by process of elimination, he deserves to be in that match too. And then at this point, Santino tells him, no, that's not happening, but I am announcing 4 qualifying matches where the winners of each of these matches will face in a 4-way match at No Surrender to determine the next number one contender. Macklin's pissed, says it's just another hoop for him to jump through. At that point, Dirty Dango rolls up with his karate moves and tells Maclin to back away, and tries to declare himself the deputy director of authority to Santino because he thought Santino was begging him to be his deputy last week, apparently. And then when Santino tells him, no, that's not the case, Dango just asks to be in one of the qualifying matches, and Santino tells him, just go away. You're already in one.
Yeah, this was also interesting for me because aside from the matches that we have announced for next week, the ones that we get the week after, 2 other people, we get Myers for next week with Dirty Dango, but there's one for the week after that it was somebody from a tag team. So I was like, wait, so this is the contender for the tag team, but they go in singles matches? I was very confused because all they told us, like, these are qualifying matches, and what other qualifying matches go for a 4-way at the pay-per-view? And I said, yeah, but you're not telling us for what title though. So I was like seeing Myers there and the other person, I was like, wait, so tag teams are going tag team people are going for the singles matches to go be in a tag team 4-way. I was like, that doesn't make sense to me. So I was like, seeing this, it definitely explains a lot of it now. And it's also, I thinking back of like what Steve was saying, I kept thinking this is the same thing I thought, because when Rich won the match, I was like, well, Steve could easily say, well, I beat Rich before, so why not just add me to the match? And when he said that, I was like, I'm not the only one thinking that route. But it was funny just seeing this segment with Dango. I think who was announced that he officially signed with Impact now too, so we're gonna see him more often now with Dirty Dango.
I just wish that we could have Tyler Breeze join Impact as well, because I would love to see the backstage interactions between Breeze, Dango, and Santino all together at the same time.
Priceless.
Next up, we cut to the ring and have another match coming to us as Crazy Steve comes out with Black Taurus and is fighting the guy that lost to Gresham last week, Sheldon Jean. Before this match gets started, Sheldon Jean does basically the exact same thing he did last week with Gresham and starts making fun of Crazy Steve for being short. So I guess Jean's whole gimmick is that he's tall.
Yeah, pretty much.
He's got a lot of athleticism. I'll give the man that. He's very athletic. He's got a lot of speed and movement and agility to him. But again, it just felt like another squash. Crazy Steve put him away with relative ease. After the match, Trey Miguel comes out, attacks Taurus, takes him out at ringside, and then tries to jump Crazy Steve in the ring. Steve manages to stop the attack, throw Trey into a corner, and get the spray paint can from Trey. But instead of spraying Trey with it, he takes and does what Trey was planning to do all along and just sprays himself with it, with Trey Miguel's initials again. Just the TM across his chest. And then cackles maniacally, and Trey just kind of backs away like, what?
This was also another one that it made me laugh because being that you see Sheldon as the tall guy, when the match ended, my dad would look at me like, that was it? He was so shocked when the match was over that quickly. And I said, well, Crazy Steve is the Impact person, so I don't see him losing this. I love watching Crazy Steve live, though. I feel like he was even though the match was super quick, it was nice to see him live. That at first it took me a moment to realize it was Trey that came in because I was from the other side where the crowd was standing up because the match had ended, so I didn't get to see him at first. But I like when he Steve just tagging himself with the TM initials on himself, just and then Trey just running away. I think that was perfectly done, the way it did. And can I say I just love that DK that theme song and everything. I love hearing it live. I couldn't stop getting it in my mind. I kept playing it in my mind for some reason. It was nice to watch it.
There's a reason that everybody in the Impact Zone loves Decay. Why they have become such favorites for everyone who is a regular with Impact Wrestling, because I'm sure just being in there for the ambiance of of their entrance and that music is something that just it ingrains and it decays into your brain, really.
And Barry's comment, I'm worried about Black Taurus being out of action when he hit the ring post. He dislocated it.
Best wishes to Black Taurus. Hopefully he's back in action soon. Backstage, we had a quick interview between Jordynne Grace and Gia Miller. Gia asks her again about how she's been talking about making Mickey tap. She says that Mickey is refuting it, but Jordynne mentions that she still has a contractually guaranteed rematch either way. But in the meantime, while she waits for Mickey and Masha to sort out the title picture, she says Steph DeLander is looking for a title match and looking for a challenge. She challenges Steph DeLander to a match for next week. So I think we ended up getting confirmation of this later in the night, or no? No, I don't think we did actually. That
not in the graphic, but I think I know I think they confirmed it on the Twitter if I'm not mistaken. But that's another one seeing it live. I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know that. I was wondering how this came about because I thought it was super interesting. Another thing that I like that Jordynne pointed out, she's like, I have a rematch. She's like, and she made it seem like whether it's against Masha or Mickey, she's like, I don't know when the match is gonna happen, which I thought was interesting because you're thinking of the timeline of we get No Surrender, Masha and Mickey, but do we get Jordynne right away against the winner of that match? Because she even said herself she doesn't know when the rematch is gonna happen.
Yeah, and that's big, right? Is you don't know what's going to happen out of this. And I mean, if Masha beats Mickey, chances are that should put Mickey in a rematch position too, should it not? That wouldn't she also have a contractually guaranteed rematch? And Rich Swann should have had a contractually guaranteed rematch for his title way back when he lost it. And we're talking now about the fact that he lost this title years ago and still hasn't got his guaranteed rematch for it. So who knows how contractually guaranteed rematches work in Impact Wrestling. Next up, and maybe you can shed some light onto this for me, Astrid, because my note on this is, what was this? Santino, in a backstage segment, sits down at a table and asks Raven for advice. And Raven says for Santino to make the company money, he should make Raven the champ. And Santino says, okay, thanks for the advice, and leaves. And then Yeti shows up and asks Raven if they're getting the flock back together. And that was the end of the segment. 1, why do we have Raven back again? 2, what the hell is Yeti doing here? 3, why is Santino asking Raven for advice?
I had the same questions you had. I was like, why is he asking Raven? Why is Raven here? Only for this that I've seen so far. And then I didn't know about Yeti, so I don't know who he was at first until he said his name. So I was like, this makes like no sense to me whatsoever right now. I don't know what happened there.
I hope something comes of this, because otherwise that was a waste of 2 minutes of my life.
Well, for now, I'm going to classify it as that.
And speaking of wastes of time of my life, Bully Ray is in the ring.
Yep.
Or at least coming down to the ring, and in the process, he shreds some little boy's sign. He yells at a little girl who's hiding behind her parents and tells her to sit down and shut up.
I feel so bad for her, tiny little girl in the front. It was cute.
I think we're all on the same page, Barry. I think we all are like, what the hell is this and who the hell is that?
To me, it was who the hell is this? Because I had no idea. It was like, if anything, I missed Impact when he was in with Raven, if he was. If not, I missed that whole time of wrestling because I don't know who he was, aside from Raven, of course. So
yeah. But Bully, after he's done picking on the little kids, comes in the ring and cries like a little baby, complains about not being in the 6-pack, 6-figure, 6-shooter match, or he doesn't even know what the match is called anymore. Then he starts complaining about Tommy Dreamer, how him and Dreamer have never liked each other in ECW and WWE, and not even on Busted Open. They just tolerate each other. And Dreamer is a liar and a snake and politics his way into this business. And to repay Bully for the last show, when Bully interrupted Mickey James comes out and interrupts Bully, calls Bully a politicking snake, and then tells him to get the hell out of, not just her ring, to get the hell out of Impact. There's more in this segment. It ended up with Tommy Dreamer coming to save Mickey after she got attacked by Bully, and the Good Hands brought a table out. And somehow out of all of this, we have Tommy Dreamer and Mickey James facing the Good Hands next week on Impact.
Yes. Gonna favorite comment. Long-term storytelling. In 20 years' time, that girl will turn up looking for revenge and kick Bully's stimmer frame away. Oh my goodness. This is one thing that I loved at first, the heat that had the heat that Bully got because he could barely talk because we were booing him so much. And not only like ripping the fans poster in the front row, but like the little girl just letting her sit down when she did. And he also pointed out, he's like, oh, Santino, remember what happened to the other guy that was in charge before? Like, he's not going to be here for a while. So it's like, you don't want that to happen to you either. Another part also that I thought was interesting is like, they cut it off from here, but when Mickey really got to the ring, her mic didn't work. And Bully made fun of her, and he said, oh, since your mic isn't working, I'll give you mine. And he threw it at her. So when you see at the entrance, he's turning his back to her when she comes in the ring, and there's a microphone already on the ground because he had thrown it at her already before him, and they cut it off from this. So if you go back and watch it, you definitely see the microphone already on the ground. But he told her, he's like, oh, your mic doesn't work. I'll give it to you. Threw it like over his head back to her. And she literally grabbed it from the ground to keep using it because hers wasn't working when she first grabbed it from next to him. And then I was waiting for that part. And then all of a sudden they cut it off and he's just turning his back to her. She has a mic already, her hands on the microphone in the corner. I was like, oh, interesting. But I love having her there, that part of it, like, paying back to what he did to her and interrupting his promo this time around. And then I thought it was funny when he keeps mentioning Busted Open. It's like, okay, you guys have a show. It's called Busted Open. Can we move on from this? How many times are we going to mention it since you guys have been this few like together now? So I thought it was pretty interesting also seeing like Mickey there. I know like Ed, when Ed was doing the show with me, he's like, I'm not used to having the ladies being involved in this way because in WWE it definitely doesn't go that way. So it's also interesting to see like somebody like Mickey being involved with bullying the way she did in this segment, and the good hands coming to assist. I love also Santino when he comes out to do the match because Dreamer's like, "We'll do this match," and he's like, "You don't have your superhero outfit on or whatever to do the match, so we'll do it next week." And then something he wanted to say, "I'm the dictator," and like he caught himself up and he changed the word too. I thought it was pretty funny. He got a good reaction from us at that moment.
The dictator or the director.
Yeah, I loved it. And so yeah, for next week they're gonna have Mickey and Tommy versus the Good Hands. But I thought it
And
was
as
funny.
Barry says when he calls him Bobby Ray.
Yeah, and then Tommy the Dreamer. That's how it is.
Tommy the Dreamer.
But yeah, I love Santino adding like he added like such a good energy to the segment like as a whole, which I really enjoyed it. But yeah, it just it just made me love seeing that part being cut off from the Mickey and Bully part at the beginning though.
I feel like we need Santino in a backstage segment with Hotch and Skyler now, asking to see their hands and being like, "Oh, those are good hands."
He would do that.
Anyhow, moving on, we get the Killer Kelly and Taylor Wilde segment that you talked about earlier, where Kelly is backstage talking about if Taylor Wilde, usually when she beats someone, they don't want to fight her again, but if Taylor Wilde wants more, she'll give her more. Taylor shows up and is like, "I didn't mean fighting you again. I meant standing beside you." And Kelly's kind of confused and like, "Well, okay, I guess, but who are we going to play with?" Poof! Death Dolls show up. Because
that was
Rosemary's
beautifully done. I like how the coffee was that it was happening too. And Ty's like, warning would have been nice. Loved it.
I liked how Rosemary played into this with her own character too, that tells Taylor Wilde, you get your direction from the spirits and your information from the spirits. I get my information from higher above, so I already knew this was coming before you even, had this idea. So let's make this happen, and this tag team match, and setting up a match that we're now going to see the Death Dolls versus Killer Kelly and Taylor Wilde in a tag team match. And I didn't note it down or not whether or not this is actually for the titles. Did you catch that?
That I remember it wasn't, but let me double check. I just had the thing.
I don't recall it being mentioned specifically.
No, the graphic doesn't have it. So I don't think so.
Yeah, so just a tag team match, possibly one where it's going to end up with somebody actually pinning Jessica or pinning Taya again, and setting it up for a title match down the line. Who knows? We move next into the Johnny Swinger versus Kenny King King with Zicky Dice at ringside. Again, Swinger and Dice are just pure comedy and action. This was a quick squash, as it typically is with Johnny Swinger at this point. And don't expect him to put on 10, 15, 20-minute masterpieces. He comes out, he has a little bit of fun, makes a goof of himself, puts the opponent over, and slides back and pushed up the ramp. This match was more about the post-match, because we had Kenny King cut himself a promo in the ring after quickly demolishing Swinger, basically putting all of the champions on notice that he's done. He's exposed Speedball Mike Bailey for what he is. Now he's looking for gold, and if you're a champion in Impact Wrestling, you should be looking out for the King.
Yeah.
I like that we're moving Kenny beyond this. I feel like I would have liked a little bit more closure to the story of Kenny and Mike. Maybe it's coming further down the line, but I do think now that we've got confirmation that Kenny King has signed another contract to stay in Impact for a while, I would like to see him in more high-profile positions, because he is somebody that's been at the top of the mountain basically in Impact before, and he can get back there again.
Yeah, I felt the same about him in Speedball, because usually I feel like I'm used to having at least 2 matches between the people and then the feud is over. and it just feels so weird having this build to it, and then they have the the quick match, and then that was it after. Or we got a mention of Speedball and him was him saying, "Oh, you're not talking about like me," and exposing him. But after that, there was nothing else towards it, which I thought was super interesting because I expected some kind of rematch of like Kenny at least wanting a rematch in some shape or form. So it was awkward to me not seeing a rematch like building up from this, but it was like I thought that we're gonna do something afterwards, but when I heard Gresham say, "Oh, I'm gonna challenge Speedball," I was like, "Oh, so I guess not, everything with Kenny's over already."
Or we're just kind of stalling a middle part here before it comes back around. But I guess we'll wait and see on where that goes for now. But definitely interested to see who's next for Kenny King, or what's next for Kenny King in this sense. We have a couple more backstage segments. A quick one back with Bully talking to Masha, telling her how, or putting the thought in her mind. Before I get to that, just Barry's comment about Johnny Swinger wants him to be allowed to wrestle and win a few matches and get the crowd into it, and the crowd would love it. I do think if Johnny started to pull out some victories somehow, some way, the crowd would absolutely get behind him. You'd have Swinger Mania. You'd have all of the different ideas floating around of one last title round for Johnny. Maybe we get there eventually. I don't know. But I don't know that I could see it actually happening, but it would definitely be a fun ride to go on if they did want to give Johnny one last push here. Back to Bully and Masha, though. We have Bully backstage just telling Masha how if he was Masha, he'd be pissed at how Mickey is overlooking and disrespecting her, that she's someone who deserves to be respected. She's someone who deserves to be taken seriously. It was a really weird interaction. It almost felt like Bully was like hitting on her through parts of this interaction. And then Masha just screams a whole bunch of Russian in his face and walks away with no subtitles. So I have no idea what she said. If anybody speaks Russian, please let me know. But did you take anything else away from this besides that?
No, I got the same vibes too, like the way he was standing next to her. It gives you like that flirty vibe, and I was like, yeah, I don't like the way this is like being on screen so far. Yeah, I wish I would have done subtitles too. I only know Spanish aside from English, so I can't help you there either. Sorry.
Need to set up like a Google Translate to translate what she's saying for me. I feel like Masha can understand the English. She just chooses not to partake in the speaking of the English.
Yeah. I feel like it makes her look intimidating too, because you can say all you want, but she's gonna speak in Russian and you're not gonna understand it.
Yeah. I'm gonna ask you for the next segment, Astrid, because we had a world premiere music video for the second week in a row. This time, Cardona and Myers making a music video for Joe Hendry. Please.
Was it a world premiere though? I thought it was funny seeing this though, because we have Cardona with Myers, like, everybody, come on, come back, come here. We have the world premiere. And then he's like, yeah, Joe Hendry was making fun of me, so I decided to like respond in the same way he went about with me. So I made him the track, and then he starts playing it, and gosh, it's terrible. It's not even close to being catchy as Joe Hendry's. I know that's the point of it, but it makes me laugh how definitely it got the point across. He's talking about like having to like ask his mom out, so he's gonna go out with Joe Hendry's mom and making fun of him for like his blonde hair and his like darker beard. Like, I guess that's all you can come up with. Sure. It just shows you like from his aspect, he doesn't have material to really go against Joe Hendry. Like, all he can pinpoint is like his physical, and there's nothing wrong with it, that part of it. So it makes me laugh when he said it. And then when it was over, he's like turning around and like, yeah, like it's like celebrating at the world premiere. And then when he turns around, there's nobody there except for one person. And the guy was like making fun. I was like, oh yeah, he definitely was right. You're but he called you last week. So I thought it was pretty funny. It's like if it was a world premiere, we would have heard about this before it actually debuted it on here. I don't think the world was watching Cardona, just letting you know.
Yeah. It was awful. It was god awful. It was difficult to watch the actual music video itself. Um, Obviously, I think that was the point, was that it was so bad, but Cardona and Myers were so into it and so excited for it, um, that they were the ones that were most excited. And after it ended, they're jumping up and down, congratulating each other, patting themselves on the back, celebrating, and then they turn around and realize that everybody's gone. And except for the one person who's wearing a major player's shirt, and it was amusing at that point where he's the only one who stayed behind. Like, what do you mean? Like, that was like, what are you trying to say?
Yeah, that was a little bit painful to watch. I'm sorry, Barry, I disagree. I'll stick to the Johan theme songs.
Yeah, absolutely. The show kind of came to a quick end for me here, though, it felt like, because I didn't even realize I was this close to the end of the night, and all of a sudden they're giving the rundown of what's going to show up, or what's coming for next week, and I'm like, wait, are we already to the main event now? You're giving me the rundown for next week?
Yeah.
But coming next week, we've got the Digital Media Championship match will be happening between Joe Hendry and Matt Cardona. We've got the Good Hands versus Tommy Dreamer and Mickey James. We've got Taylor Wilde and Killer Kelly versus the Death Dolls. And then we've got our first two of the qualifying matches for that World Championship number one contender. First one being Brian Myers versus Dirty Dango, or Deputy Dango as they started calling him. And the second one being a really interesting match pairing. Shira, who we haven't actually seen much of at all in the last couple months, being put in this qualifier match against Perfect Creation 1, the French-Canadian Frankenstein PCO.
Yeah, and we get Steph versus Jordan.
What's that?
We get Steph DeLander versus Jordan Grace as well for next week.
Steph DeLander versus Jordan Grace, which wasn't confirmed in the end of the show graphic, but was confirmed on social media. So that's a pretty heavy card of matches to come next week, and I'm sure a lot more backstage segments setting things up. Mickey James is in the match, Barry. I mean, we can ignore that Tommy Dreamer's in the match, but it's hardcore country in that match, so you got to win some of those, right?
Yeah.
Main event tonight, 4-on-4 tag team match between Khan, Angels, Callihan, and Diener of the Design, taking on Frankie Kazarian, Yuya Uemura, the number one contender Rich Swann, and the world champion Josh Alexander. I've come to realize this many men in a tag team match is A, overdone, but B, not really enjoyable to me anymore. I love all of the pieces put together in this match. I just don't like the way the multi-main matches feel a lot of the time, where it just feels like you got the slow build, you've got everybody hitting their moves, the chaos ensues, you break it up, you get back to a little bit more action, more chaos ensues, and then somebody manages to land a finisher to end the match. A lot of the time based on who's feuding with who, or to set a story up. It just feels like too many moving pieces, and this was a prime example of it for me. I don't knock it a lot, because I love all 8 of these guys individually, and all of them have aspects of their characters and of their moves that really hit for me. Just in this match, it just felt like from the time we started this match, I could already envision that we were getting to a point where Callihan was going to finish his test, and Uemura was really only in this match as the man to eat the pin.
Yep.
So I didn't really get a lot from this match. I couldn't find myself enjoying it because I'd already visualized how it was finishing, and nothing really stood out as unexpected for me.
No, I think like one of my favorite parts was like that part of like everybody hitting their moves on each other, that kind of chaos when it starts happening, and like Josh having that hot tag But I think more than anything, what stood out to me was the part in commentary because I keep mentioning, oh, when Sammy had the match last week in the six shooter, like what was him and Swann towards the end, he was really hesitant when it came to Swann. But if you notice this week, he's being less hesitant, especially now that he's teaming up with the design. And that part of it is like, and he had that, that moment of like he was gonna do the thumbs up and then the thumbs down, and even Diener held him over, and then they said in commentary, oh, he's like basically thinking back of like his moment as a death machine, who's now supposed to be dead according to Diener. So it's like, oh, those are like old habits, kind of die hard kind of situation. So it's kind of like seeing that progression in Callihan. It's what really like what I stood out to me in this match more than anything. Like you said, I was like when I heard the match being announced, I kept thinking, there's too many people involved in here. I don't know how I feel about this. So as you can see, it feels like Josh and Rich teaming up, it makes sense. But at the same time, like having Frankie and Yuya there doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. So it's like I feel like that was a mess in it itself. Um, but yeah, I like that part having like Josh the hot tag at the end. And I like how Sammy had that win at the end because it just goes back to what they were saying. It's like they told him he has to win the match and he won it for his team. So he definitely passed on that step that they gave him. And he kind of like redeemed himself for what happened last week. So I feel like it was more towards that the story for the design, especially for Callihan. But I feel like everything else could have done without it. Like you said, I would have preferred the opening match as the main event, and this one would have been the opener because it felt like not only that, but it felt short as well. I feel like the speed of it and like that back and forth they had, it felt really short. So I feel like I would have added maybe another ladies match or done like you said that switch from like the opener to the main event because it is how I was like so about it. But like I said, it's like to me it was more about the experience of like having seen these people wrestle for the first time live because my dad made me realize after this show the last time I was watching wrestling live was WrestleMania in 2019. So it's like it's incredible, like made me feel how much I miss it, but at the same time I keep thinking it's like I could have done without this match to be honest. Like I wasn't that excited about it when it was announced.
Yeah, I think as an opener, like you could have run the design segment right off the bat and then jumped right into the match. You didn't have to have like the design segment at the start of the night and then the match at the end. I think you're right. This match probably would have felt a little bit better as an opener because it was kind of a high octane, hot action match um, to get the crowd into it and get everybody going with the big names right off the bat. And even at the end of the match, once the show ended, I looked over and I said, that was a weird way to end. That felt like just a sudden ending. Like
Yeah.
sitting at the ramp, just looking at Diener and the design there as they're celebrating at the bottom of the ramp, and commentary didn't even really do much to make it feel like finite. It didn't feel like a finish. It didn't feel like the end to me. It felt like we were going to end this spot and jump to something else for some reason. And it
Mhm.
was a weird way to end the show, and it just left me wanting. It left me wanting more and feeling unfulfilled as far as tonight's show went at the end. For what was an excellent show up until that point, just the way it went off the air felt like that was it.
Yeah, it felt that kind of awkward finish. And another thing that I realized too, like I was disappointed in the aspect of like I know like me watching it live, when you think about this taping, we only had one knockouts match. And everything else was like backstage segments, whether were like mashed up with Bully or like that Jordan interview. And then Killer Kelly with Taylor One and Death Dolls. But we only had one match for the ladies and it wasn't even that long to begin with. So I was like, I'm waiting still for like a little bit more. I feel like they have been losing so many people. That's why I'm hoping that Steph got signed because I feel like it will bring something else to the table with her being involved here. And I feel like now with Gisele having that transformation of finally taking that role as a Black Widow, so I'm hoping that some changes come in as in the next couple of weeks. I hope.
That said, there was only the one match, but I feel like we had almost the entirety of the women's roster, the knockouts roster, was in this show on this episode in some fashion. You had Gisele and Savannah in the match. You had a Jordan interview. You had a Mickey segment. You had the Steph Delander promo. You had the three Death Dolls. You had both of Kelly and Taylor Wilde. You had a Masha segment. That's like 11 women on the show. I don't know. I can't even think off the top of my head other than maybe Alicia Edwards. Who else is even there for women on the roster right now? So we had the entire roster represented on the show, but only in backstage as opposed to anybody actually in the ring. But we did set up that we're going to see at least 2 matches with at least 6 women in the ring for next week. So actually 7 women, because we have Mickey as well, makes 7.
Yeah. Got a Barry's comment. I didn't realize this. He said, was it a message when Callihan winked at the camera right at the end of the show? I didn't notice that, to be honest. I'm gonna have to go back
Nor
and
did
watch just
I.
like that little.
It's a good eye if that is something that you picked up there, Barry. I didn't see anything either. I do have a PVR, so I can quickly jump back and check that after we go off air. But interesting thought there, that maybe this is all an act to, if you can't beat them, join them, and then beat them from within.
There you go. It's happening. I'm telling you.
That's it for the night. That was the show. It was definitely a lot of setup. There was a lot of action, but it was a lot of setup for the future. We got a couple pieces added to the puzzle for No Surrender, setting us up now that we've got the men's title match still confirmed. We've got the women's title match still confirmed. We have now a direction of how we're going to get to our next number 1 contender for Josh, which, if it's not Steve Macklin, we might need to riot. We've got our digital media championship match set up for next week. We've got kind of a direction now for our knockouts tag teams. The only piece that was really missing from tonight's show was the men's tag team championships and that division. Like, we had the opening tag match there, but I felt like that was the piece that took a backseat this week, I guess, is the best way to put it. And not that it's forgotten or anything, just this week it didn't get the focus that everyone else did. So next week, maybe we have a little bit more backstage stuff dealing with the Machine Guns and Ace and Bay and wherever we're going next in that direction.
Can't say anything.
That said, we'll jump to the question I have every week for you, Astrid. Who was your impact maker of the week?
It doesn't seem random for me, but I want to say Chrissy Steve. I really enjoyed it, seeing him there, and like that sort of him and Trey Miguel so far.
Okay, that's a solid choice. I think for myself, I'm gonna have to fall back on Gisele Shaw for this week. Just the match itself, the promo after the match, it really felt like she was pushed to another level this week. As much as I didn't agree with how that match played out and thought it should have been more her as a wily heel more so than dominant, the fact that she was so dominant and she got the mic time in the ring and got the reaction that she did this week, I feel just really sets up that Gisele Shaw is someone to watch for 2023, that she is going places in Impact Wrestling. Barry, this week he was more mid than Mid Cardona was when he was mid facing Moose. So
now I cannot unsee Mid Cardona. Holy moly. Yeah, that's gonna be in my mind now. Thanks, Barry.
Yeah. Astrid, where can the people find you?
You can find me on my Twitter, which is like my name there, Astrid Pizarro. Instagram is Astrid Pizarro 20. Then on Tuesday I'll be taking over an OLE with Ed, and oh yeah, he did. I'm not gonna say it. Cody, it's your turn.
To me, he will always be. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. You fill in the blanks.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm taking over with Ed on OLE. Hopefully I did this correctly. Yeah. For Vengeance Day, the post show this weekend, we're gonna have Wallflower Perry with us to react about Carmelo Hayes. So that'd be super interesting for him to see, and Grayson Waller too. And then I'll be back with you taking over. I think you're probably missing it next week, if I'm not mistaken. But I'll be making an impact again next week. I don't know if I'll be here though. I think you are, maybe.
Yet to be decided. I haven't bought my ticket yet, but it is the next Top Talent Wrestling here in Edmonton next week, and Masha Slamovich will be back to defend her Top Talent Wrestling Championship. really want to get out to it, just trying to piece together if I should do that or if I should be here and do some Impact reactions with you some more. So as of right now, still up in the air, but you can find and follow me at Cody Defoe on Twitter. Not entirely active anywhere else beyond that. Mike, absolutely. Tom Lawler versus Mitch Clark is the main event of that show next week and the bigger reason to be wanting to go see that. So I have to make up my mind. I'm very indecisive on this at the moment, so I can't say for certain. So I guess tune in next Thursday, find out if I'm here with Astrid or if she's got a special guest, maybe an OLED back here with her, or who else could potentially drop in to talk some Impact Wrestling in my absence. That's
Yeah, I
it.
hope you can
That's all I
contribute
got.
to the OLED charge that I'm gonna get for him being here again. Another thing, I also
I
have
already
my
contributed. I
streaming.
wished him a happy birthday.
That doesn't count. No. If you go to the local establishment's YouTube, I have a Scream 6 trailer reaction that that was uploaded, I think, yesterday at this point. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's also on my YouTube, on my Twitter as well, if you want to watch it. I also want to say, before we go on, I'm gonna rate my friend Manda, who is streaming at the moment. But yeah, we want to thank everybody for being here tonight and supporting us and just enjoying the show like we did tonight too. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it from us tonight, right?
That's it. To everybody in the comments, Barry, Mike, Mel, Bobby, Ed, thanks for joining. Thanks for dropping in. Thanks for dropping a comment. We'll see you all guys next week.
Maybe.